Today's guest was told by medical doctors following a devastating diagnosis of cancer that her scans were, quote, not the scans of a person who lives, unquote. She battled and deteriorated over the subsequent months and then took the ultimate leap of faith. God interrupted death's plan, and she's here to talk about it right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SkyWatchTV. You know, today is a celebration of life. Our special guest was hit with that diagnosis that everyone fears. She was encountered by the grips of death, and she was told by the doctors that were overseeing her difficult battle with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer that had spread to her ovaries and several other places in her body that her scans were not the scans of a person who lives. It was at that time she threw herself into the Word of God and is here today, cancer-free, to tell you about her incredible journey. Please welcome our special guests, Lynette Hill and her husband, John. Lynette, your brand new book, I think the subtitle says it all, even though it doesn't say enough. And let me show you this book cover, ladies and gentlemen. Her book, Overcoming Cancer, From Despair and Desperation to Hope, Life, and a Newfound Mission. And I will say that this book reads with all of the feels. When you read this book, you're going to go with Lynette on this journey through the terrifying moment the doctors told her, Lynette, we're afraid you have, fill in the blank, to the moment she began to determine herself in Christ that it was not her time, and she began to realize that God was laying out steps for her that would be vital to her recovery. It's an exhilarating piece. There's moments of terrifying horror. There's moments of elation. A couple of times I was actually, while I was reading the book, texting Donna Howell, the chief editor of the book project. I can hear the Rocky Balboa music playing. Eye of the Tiger, let's go, right? But as one who also has this side passion, I'm a board-certified holistic health practitioner through the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. And so when I'm not doing TV and running camps for the children of Whispering Ponies Ranch, I'm also doing a lot of counseling and coaching of people that have anomalistic health issues, dealing with malevolent disease. And I have over and over again seen God step in and do things when the status quo narrative is you have a finite number of months that we foresee that you live, or you're dealing with an autoimmune disease that there is no cure for, completely beyond their disease or completely recovered. God does this over and over and over again. But a lot of times you have to look outside of the status quo narrative. This book is obviously parts of your personal testimony, but it also discloses what it was that God showed you throughout your recovery that was so important to your health. Can you briefly just kind of set this up for us? When you were diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer and then told that it had spread, what was that moment like?
It was probably the worst moment I've ever had in my life. In July of 2021, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, where it originated in my breast, metastasized down to my lungs, my stomach, my ovaries. I had a 12-centimeter mass sitting on my ovaries, and it was in my bones. And they told my husband to just keep me comfortable, because as Joe mentioned, they said my scans are not the scans of someone that lives. And I was scared like most people and immediately jumped into traditional medicine of chemotherapy with every side effect you can imagine. I knew after a few months of it that it was not working for me, and I had to look into something different because I had nothing to lose. And so I decided at the height of my illness, I made the own personal choice to stop all Western medicine and just go with natural medicine created by God. And within 6 months, my 12-centimeter mass was gone. And within 6 months after that, I was cancer-free.
It would be irresponsible on a live television format like this for us to play the role of doctors and advise to you or try to diagnose or prescribe what you should be doing if you're somebody out there that's dealing with a malevolent cellular situation. But the book itself has so much hope grounded in reality. And I don't believe that this was a one-off. I have seen this many times before, Lynette. We have talked privately about the number of testimonies that you hear now. As you've become viral online, this lady has a massive online presence, which is where I first learned about you. And you get feedback a lot from people that had similar situation to you that are now saying, you know, Lynette, I put my faith in God. He has restored my body. But again, in this country in particular, a lot of times these conversations are kind of met with supposition that you are a lunatic and you are gambling with your health if you don't adhere to what doctors are advising you to do. So again, it would be medically irresponsible for us to try to prescribe or diagnose somebody, maybe the viewer at home, with anything specific today, other than to say that I believe great hope resides in this book. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
In the moments that you were at your darkest, you know, you're grasping on to life, would a book like this have helped you during your journey?
Tremendously. Very, very much so.
And not just the hyperbole, though.
Right.
A lot of times in science, they'll even tell you that things like placebo, they can't explain, right? Dr. Ralph, who's here with us today, they will say, right?
Contributor to Timebomb.
Yeah, contributor to Timebomb, my book Timebomb. They will tell you that they cannot explain what makes placebo effective, but for a large number of people that simply believe in their healing, just the power of the mind, maybe in harmony with God, the expectation that their cells are going to do well, their belief that their body is recovering. And I've heard doctors myself who have dealt with, you know, a lot of patients that are dealing with life-threatening situations that have said, and I quote, they've told me this, the people who are negative about their outcomes usually don't do very well. The ones that believe in their healing do a lot better. So it's, you know, we as Christians know that God is at work in a lot of this. I could leave this program and get hit by a bus this afternoon. God has appointed each one of us a time to exit stage this reality and enter the gates of heaven for those that are believers. What resides in this book is way beyond hyperbole. I appreciate what you've done in the book to kind of organize the steps that God revealed to you, and I believe that it will help others. Now, just a moment ago, you mentioned a snapshot. The side effects of some of the treatments that you were undergoing were horrific at the time. And for the viewers that maybe heard that and want to know more specifically, what were some of the side effects? I know you had mouth sores that are beyond, you know, if a person's had a canker sore, it's not a canker sore. These were horrific.
These were horrific. So prior to my diagnosis, I was not in and out of the hospital. I had no comorbidities. I went to the hospital 5 times to have our 5 amazing boys, and that was it. So my body didn't know medication. So when I started harsh treatment of chemotherapy, within 2 weeks, my body immediately started spiraling. I started getting diarrhea and vomiting at the same time. And I had mouth sores that was just all throughout my mouth. So I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. It was painful just to swallow. If you look at the side effects list, that was me. It was everything. And because I had diarrhea and vomiting all the time, I was constantly rushed to the hospital for hydration. And then I was rushed to the hospital for blood transfusions at least 3 times. It was constant, one thing after another. Within 6 months, I had lost 111 pounds. I was just deteriorating with a distended belly that they call chemo belly. I was rushed to the hospital again to have 4 liters of fluid taken out of my stomach. It was just a nightmare. So that was a lot of the side effects. It was horrible.
And there was a lot of emotional, psychological devastation. Tell us
Oh my
about,
gosh.
in the book, there's a scene where you end up in what I imagine to be probably like the loneliest, most depressing environment in the world. It was under COVID lockdown times when everybody's masked up, you're not allowed to visit loved ones. You're in the ICU now over a holiday,
Yes.
still expecting that at some point you may not be here.
Right.
Tell us about that.
So in July of 2021, at the end of it, about 6 months into my treatment, I went to a regular doctor visit because I was going in all the time for checkups. And I knew that morning when I woke up, something was not right. I was just in and out, and my husband barely got me to the car in time. We went to the doctor's office, and the technician came in. She took my blood pressure. It was 60/40. And she looked at me
Oh,
and she
my.
took it again. And I'm looking at the machine and it's 60/40. And she immediately rushes out of the room. And the doctor comes running back in with her. And like I said, I was just fading in and out. And I remember the doctor bending down and looking at me and saying, "Are you okay?" And she knew I wasn't, but she wanted to get a response. And all I remember saying is, "Please help me." She had already called the paramedics because they came rushing in right after her. And my poor, wonderful husband is sitting there with all of this chaos going on. And I remember the technician saying, "I can't feel a pulse." And the other one saying, "I could feel a pulse, but it's very light." Right away, they're rushing me to ICU. And I hear her tell my husband, "I don't think she's going to make it. Her organs are shutting down." And I was rushed to ICU. He couldn't come with me. No one could come with me. And I knew I was dying. And I just thought, I'm going to die looking at the face of strangers. Where's my husband? Where's my
Sure,
family?
yeah.
And I just closed my eyes and just surrendered to going home.
And you thought in that moment when you closed your eyes, that might be it.
Yep.
That might be it.
Yep.
What was the next thing that you remember?
I remember waking up and the doctor saying, "Welcome back." And I was so disoriented because I thought I was dying. And so I realized I was still in the hospital. The machines are all beeping. And I was in the hospital for 3 weeks after that. And I contracted a bacterial infection called C. difficile. It was COVID protocol, and I already had this infection. So they were coming into my room to change me literally in hazmat
Sure.
clothing because it's so dangerous and you could die from it. And again, no family, no husband. I was isolated. I was by
Right.
myself.
No, it's
It
very
was
serious.
just the
That
worst
by
thing.
itself could be fatal.
Yeah.
I mean, just
yes.
adding that one layer could be fatal.
Yes, it was the worst thing.
This was a very important part of your turning now. You were on this trajectory, and friends, we are rushing through this testimony because of the sake of time restrictions today. I mean, there's so many things I want to ask you about your journey that I'm sure that the audience at home wants to know about. Like, if you were one who had only ever been to the hospital 5 times, why do you think that you ended up with this impossible diagnosis? We've also kind of hazed through how you got your diagnosis, because there was a series of doors there that God kind of walked you through. And if we get time, we maybe circle back to that. But I want to ask you, before we run out of time though, what was it about that event, the closing of the eyes, reawakening, being stuck in the ICU through what ended up being holiday, alone,
Yes.
in the presence of strangers, though they may have been wonderful and kind, they're not your family.
Right.
Why did that become such an important catalyst to this pivot in the direction you had been undergoing with your disease?
I have always been someone that has been very independent. I was a working mom, wife. I was just one of those people that took charge, took care of everything. And to be lying there, helpless and bedridden, it was so hard for me. And after the 3 weeks of being in the hospital and going home, what happens when your system starts shutting down, your brain just goes to protect your organs, your heart, what it needs. So my legs didn't work. So I went home in a wheelchair. My wonderful husband is changing my diapers. I'm skin and bones. I look a hot mess, as they say. And I just knew this cannot be the way I heal. There has to be something different. I can't have my family put their life on hold. My husband's changing my diapers. My son is picking me up and taking me to bed. I said, no, there has to be a better way. There has to be a different way to heal. And that began my turning point.
This is what Lynette looked like towards the middle of her journey. The aging is so obvious. There's this look of fear and depression and desperation, and you can just see the nausea and the pain.
Physical contact.
The physical toll. Yeah, you look 20 years older than your actual biological age, but it's obvious to the people in this room who are seeing you now, this glow. You look healthier now than you did before your diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you square that? I mean, at some point, and you talk about this in your book, you became convinced that the treatments that you were receiving were not going to heal. You just said, you could feel your body shutting down. Obviously, there was something that happened between that day and the day that you received your new scans, which showed no cancer anywhere. There's a huge journey there towards healing that required a giant step of faith.
Yes.
Conventional thinking would be, you're insane to now go against the recommendations of the people that are experts in helping you overcome a malevolent disease like the ones, plural, that you were dealing with. What was it that became the trigger moment Was it a single moment or a series of decisions where you kind of just stepped away and there was this exodus for you from that path to the one that you ended up on?
The single moment was, as I was mentioning previously, where I knew there had to be a different way to heal. Because in my spirit, as a Christian, I call it the Holy Spirit. Some people call it instinct. Some people call it consciousness, whatever. In my spirit, for me personally, for my journey, I knew if I continued with this treatment, my poor husband was going to have to bury me. I just knew that without a doubt. So I had to look at something different. And that's where I started my research to see, was there anything else out there?
And you know, anybody that's ever tried to research anything, you go online, it's a powder keg. Even doctors will tell you, don't go to Dr. Google. I kind of get nervous going to Dr. Google because you just need a little skosh of information on something. You didn't realize there's 9 comorbidities now that might mean you're dying, and you didn't have a clue until you just looked up the sniffles. Like, it's a powder keg, and then you have 37 people per page telling you, this is the one, trust me, don't listen to these guys. Right. And then there's another group of people saying, oh my goodness, if you listen to them, you're a goner, you got to listen to our deal. Right. And then you read articles, right, Lynette? People that are claiming, you know, they've recovered from X, Y, or Z. And you can too for $2.99 a month. Follow the link to the secret website where you'll learn the secrets and order the science sauce. And you're just, okay. And now you don't even know if there's any validity to the story because it comes off like they're just trying to sell you something, right? At some point, you ended up, though, stepping into the gauntlet and trying to navigate what was 900 different argumentative voices on whether or not there even is a possibility of overcoming something like this, right?
Right. I didn't know anything about natural medicine. So all I did was Google healing from cancer. I didn't put natural healing, medical, nothing, just healing from cancer. Right. And I followed every story, every link. And like you said, some of the stories, I'm so engaged in their story and I'm reading about it and I'm excited because maybe I'm going to find the cure. And at the end of it, for $149.99, click here and I'm like,
there it is.
Serious?
Yeah, and you don't even know if this is a person or a bot or an AI or what, right?
Exactly. But I followed every link, every story. I was bedridden. I had nothing to do. I might as well research every link, every story. And there were so many things out there, though, for our healing that was surprising to me because I'd never heard of it. And I'm going through all this treatment, and no one's ever mentioned anything different. And so as I was researching and I found certain things that work, some I tabled because my spirit wasn't guiding me to it. Yeah. But the other things that I decided I was going to do, I went to our very own NIH website, and it showed that there are scientific documents on these things that are able to heal our bodies. Right. And so at the height of my illness, like I mentioned in the beginning, I decided faith without works is dead. And I told Heavenly Father, I am going to just step out on faith. I'm going to stop every treatment, and I'm going to go with what you created on this earth for our bodies, and either you heal me or take me home, because I'm not doing this.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure you know how you can get your copy of this incredible book, Overcoming Cancer, From Despair and Desperation to Hope, Life, and a Newfound Mission in the Lynette Hill special offer. This amazing opportunity includes the brand new book by Lynette Hill, Overcoming Cancer, From Despair and Desperation to Hope, Life, and a Newfound Mission, that details her harrowing journey from a prognosis of death to her own awe-inspiring restoration after discovering God's path for true healing, maximizing immunity, and supporting recovery. But that's not all. This unbelievable collection also includes my book, Unlocking Eden, with companion DVD that reveals the true underlying root cause behind why millions of Americans are suffering a health crisis epidemic right now completely unnecessarily. From the importance of detoxification, unburdening metabolic pathways, and maximizing methylation, the Unlocking Eden book and companion DVD collection is filled with groundbreaking information that can help you revolutionize your health and your life. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $65. Yours now for your donation of only $35, which includes free shipping to all U.S. orders. So act quickly. You can scan the QR code on your screen using the camera app on your phone for instant access to this special opportunity right now, but it's available only while supplies last, so don't delay. You can visit us at SkyWatchTVstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985 and ask for the Lynette Hill special offer. It's not an opportunity that you're going to want to miss. Lynette, I want to get right back into this here. You were talking about God's medicine. Why do you frame it that way? I mean, obviously, we as believers, most of us accept that He left us with things for the improvement of our body, for the benefit of our immune systems, for the support of healthy cells, and things that fight against bad ones.
Yes.
Isn't that right?
That is correct. And I call it God's medicine because when God created man, He put everything on this earth that we would need. He said in the scriptures, I've created every herb for the benefit of man. The leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nation. I created the fruit and the seed within it as meat for man. And I want to bring something interesting about seeds because part of my healing was using God's natural medicine. And if you notice now, the powers that be are removing the seeds from the fruit. So it's hard to find seeded watermelon, seeded grapes. Everything is seedless because they know that God put the medicine in the seed. And so God put everything on this earth for our bodies.
When I was first speaking with Lynette about her story, she said that she had often had people that had said, what was it that you did? What is your regimen? And so when she says God's medicine, she means it because from the very beginning, her response was always, look, this is really God's medicine. It's not a Lynette regimen. It's God's medicine.
And I would just follow that up by telling you that there's parts of when you use the word regimen that people always assume means that it's something that happened upon inside of a bottle or came inside capsules. The truth is, part of the regimen is faith.
That's true.
It is mindset. It is expecting that God is going to have His way with your body. It's being positive. Lynette, in your book, I recall reading, you're taking walks in the sunshine. You're giving thanks for every breath. You're thanking Him for your pets. You're seeing everything in three-dimensional color. And you're eating clean. That's the other giant thing. You're not poisoning your body with pesticides and herbicides and sodium nitrates via terrible meat by giant processors. So again, it would be medically irresponsible to insinuate that there's some magic bottle of science sauce that fixes everything. It's a multiple pronged way of life that you highlight in the book that I'm such a giant fan of. With just a few minutes left on the clock, I also want to bring up, because I know that a lot of our Skywatch audience would find this very fascinating. You and I'm not going to tell this whole story today, but you and I met through social media. And the minute I saw your testimony, on a video, by the way, that the platform has since deleted and removed because it was getting millions and millions of plays, but before they deleted it, I got a chance to see it. And by the way, it was one that I had sent my father way back while he was still alive a year ago. And I said, you've got to see this lady. I think she's legitimate. And he agreed. He said, the camera likes her. I think she's got a story to tell. Which, coming from my father was like, it's a done deal. I got to talk to this special lady and see if she has any interest in taking her story to a broad audience via a book. And then, of course, I asked for corroboration. As much as I appreciated your online presence and believed you to be an honest person, I had to do my due diligence. So I asked Lynette for corroboration. She sent me both familial pictures. She sent me screens of labs. She sent me the evidence that satisfied my curiosity that this event really took place. This is not somebody on the internet now just decrying this big fable that doesn't exist. The decision was made to put it out in the form of a Defender book in faith that God would use it to encourage others. The book itself, because you're not a narcissist, was a lot shorter than the one that exists today. You were simply fact by fact by fact, and you didn't think that people would be interested in your personal story. I remember her asking me, I don't think people are going to care what I thought that day or how I was feeling going through that or what the room looked like when I got that fateful phone call. And I said, no, that's where you're wrong, Lynette, with all respect.
Right.
People are going to be invested in you, the person, and your story based on the more they get to know you. This is where the 10 out of 10 skill set that Donna Howell brought to the project as the chief editor over the book. She worked with you for months, getting every detail. What was the paint in the room like? What was your heartbeat like when they told you this or when you experienced that? What was the elation like when you got your scan and you realized, oh my goodness, it's working? And that was where Donna, as the chief editor, really helped you develop what now resides in the book, Overcoming Cancer, correct?
That's absolutely correct. When I wrote my book, it's as you said, mine was just more fact-based. It wasn't really all of the added things that you said. And I like to reference it as when God made man, he made man, right? But when he breathed into man with his own breath, man became a living soul. So my book was just man, right?
Right.
But when Donna got a hold of it, she breathed into it, and my book came to life, and my story came to life. And I always get emotional on this part when I think about you, because what she did with my story, bringing it to life, and just even when I read my own story, I'm just overwhelmed with emotions, because what you did was fantastic with your master editing skills, the way you did, the whole Defender just believing in me and my story. But you're amazing. I'm eternally grateful for you.
He's a very humble man, and I have promised that I would not draw a lot of attention to him because he is not the sort that enjoys being made a spectacle. But I have asked for permission to give just a moment of respect and praise to John, because John stood with Lynette and marched out his marital vows in a way that I think embodies the kind of true grit and steel that men used to have when my father and my grandfather were here. Today, these younger boys, they don't understand holding the door for a woman. They don't understand concepts of chivalry or for that matter, standing by in times of sickness and in health. Right. So ladies and gentlemen, for just a moment, I think we owe John a huge thank you and a round of applause. When the rubber meets the road, when crisis becomes reality. My father used to say, you don't really know what a person is when things are good.
Right.
They're like a sponge. When you squeeze them, you see what's inside.
Yeah.
And we know that John is a world-class A-plus guy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we're all out of time this week, but join us next week when we talk more about some of the lifestyle decisions that Lynette made that she credits for a large part of her recovery. For everybody here in studio, for everybody on panel, Lynette, John, thank you so much for joining us this week. I'm Joe Artis Horn. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ. We'll be back.